Good morning, Dan and Amy. No, Amy, in these challenging times, I am often want to go back and reread passages from Whittaker Chambers' Witness and remind myself that it's about putting in the fight for what you think is right, even if you think you're going to lose, as was the case with Chambers, because you may turn out to be wrong. And if you haven't read Witness, everybody listening should read Witness. It's one of the most important books of the last 100 years. But now that has been replaced by Ken Bone. And now I just want to know all the details of Ken Bone's life in Shiloh, Illinois, including the cats.
Well, this may be shocking, but I got sucked into his wife, Heather's Facebook page. Dan, they don't have 2, 3, 4. They have 5 cats.
And Heather is his wife.
Heather is his wife,
Which
yes.
is the shocking part of the story.
Why?
That it's not Ken and 5 cats.
Oh, that's so mean. He's got a son who loves him very much. He's
Yes.
a young little teen, little whippersnapper there. And yeah, Ken's, I learned a lot about Ken too. Ken, he's a pretty funny guy. He was sequestered, he and the others that were at that town hall, for 14 hours. So that's why they had those disposable cameras up there. But no, he works in the energy industry, and he was ready to ask his question.
The
and
coal
the
industry?
sweater, yes, and the sweater that he was wearing sold out on Izod. Going to be the #1 Halloween costume this year. Okay. He's making the rounds, and he was going to wear something different, but his pantsuit kind of, he had an accident.
I had a really nice olive suit that I love a great deal, and my mother would have been very proud to see me wearing on television. But apparently I've gained about 30 pounds, and when I went to get in my car the morning of the debate, I split the seat of my pants all the way open. So the red sweater is plan B. I'm glad it worked out.
Ken Bone. It's something only could happen again. So here's, we'll take your calls. For Halloween, are you going to go as red cardigan Ken Bone or olive suit Ken Bone?
I'm going to go as Nancy O'Dell.
Yeah.
Oh.
But first we have to tackle some more heady matters, and to do that, we're joined by our friend Mark Hemingway, senior writer for the Weekly Standard, weeklystandard.com, and also his wife Molly, a regular guest. She writes for The Federalist, also excellent writer. Mark, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
So let's start with your piece, given kind of just to try and get a handle on the state of play in the race. You write, it's time to recognize which GOP leaders were right about Trump. So which ones were?
Well, there are a couple of names that spring to mind. I really do think that stood out basically for opposing Trump early on and standing on principle. Ben Sass, the junior senator from Nebraska, for a long time earlier this year was the only Republican member of Congress publicly opposed to Trump. And, he was taken to Twitter and, asking Donald Trump questions about, do you think it's okay to sleep with married women, and things like that. And here we are, that very question may be the downfall of Trump's candidacy. And the other is Mike Lee, senator from Utah. Now, he didn't have as much political risk there because, for whatever reason, Utah voters, Mormons, have been, uniformly opposed to Trump since pretty much the beginning. But at the same time, he really went the extra mile. He led a revolt among delegates on the floor of the Republican convention as a sitting U.S. senator, which was kind of unprecedented in at least in the modern era. And he really put his money where his mouth is. The Republican Party, of course, shut down that delegate revolt in a rather corrupt fashion. But he really worked to try and stop Trump.
Well, with the election is a month away, and do you think these, 36, 37 politicians, Republicans who are against Donald Trump, do you think it's really going to affect his base? People that are already committed to Donald Trump?
Well, it's not going to affect his base, but the problem is that Donald Trump's base is probably about 35% of the voting public. That's about the people. If you look at the primary polls and what's going on in the polls now, and extrapolate out, that's about Trump's hardcore base of support. And if that's where things stand, if Trump doesn't get much above 35-40%, it's just going to be an absolute bloodbath. I think, we have 3 polls now. Granted, we're still sort of absorbing the news of both the debate and the leaked tape on Friday. There are about 3 polls now that show him all of a sudden, losing by double digits. I remember, I think it's the NBC poll that came out yesterday showed that on the generic ballot, Democrats were, 7 points ahead of Republicans. Anything above, Democrats plus about 3, the GOP's historic House majority majority is in jeopardy. That's what's going on right now. The polling really is that apocalyptic, and that's why all of these Republicans are jumping ship now.
Yeah, but it seems to me that may exacerbate the death spiral rather than trying to hold fast and remind people that, soft pedal it as much as you want, but basically, this is who Trump is, and you knew it from the beginning. Nobody can be surprised. This is who Trump's been for 25 years. It's who he's been for the last 16 months. So stop pretending you're surprised by the quality of Trump's character and focus on stopping Hillary. Focus on these two individuals as vessels for very different policy choices, very different Supreme Court nominees, and so forth, sort of like Trump was able to do on Sunday night, and try and get back to that as the referendum question. Isn't that the play?
Well, that's the argument against what's happening right now. But the problem here is it's just really kind of an arbitrage here. You're weighing the risk of abandoning Trump now versus the risk of holding together unity as a party. And I don't know. I mean, they've been holding together pretty good for a long time now, and Trump could never quite get over the hump in the polls. And now with this knowledge, the problem here is that you've got a lot of swing districts that are especially vulnerable to this kind of thing, and already they were, people like Kelly Ayotte running for Senate in New Hampshire are already really putting their, risking a lot to support Trump. At some point, there was no way you were going to be able to talk certain individual Republicans in certain difficult swing districts, to keep defending this guy, because, I think their political careers were directly impacted by it. But yeah, no, you make a very good case about the alternative argument for, against abandoning Trump. It appears that Republicans have already made their choice based on the conference call that Paul Ryan had with House members yesterday and the dozens that abandoned him over the weekend.
Yeah, but Paul Ryan's not giving up on him completely. He's just not going to be campaigning with him.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, you have to remember Paul Ryan is in kind of a unique position. He's not just an ordinary House Republican. He's in a very safe seat. And on top of that, he is the Speaker of the House. So I think Paul Ryan, I'm not sure Paul Ryan ever wanted to support Trump, to be honest. But, he felt that as, the leader of the Republican Party in a lot of ways, that he had no choice, but for the sake of party unity, for the sake of preserving the institution, that he had to come out and support the nominee. And I think that's kind of where he is at now.
With respect to this mutiny, and maybe that's been stemmed a little bit by his debate performance on Sunday, but whether it has or not, with respect to this, seems like Trump has to pivot there, too, and not get into Twitter wars with individual members of Congress, much less the Speaker of the House, but just to say, look, I know there's a lot of the political ruling class against me. They have been from the beginning. They thought I was a joke. They think you're a joke, American people, Trump supporters. And I'm not running for them and for their support. I'm running for you and to advance your interests. So I don't care what they do or say. I don't care who from the ruling class is going to support me or not. If they want to support me, great. If they don't want to support me, that's fine too, because this is about your economic future. It's not about the political future of the ruling class. It seems he's got to make that argument to kind of dismiss and marginalize the mutiny, while also making the other argument I just mentioned to refocus the referendum on Hillary.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that would be the best argument for him to make at this moment in time. The question is how capable is Trump of effectively making that argument? I mean, you mentioned Twitter wars with individual members of the House. Of course, he was tweeting out, bad things about Paul Ryan this morning. I mean, he's too petty and narcissistic to look beyond, these, individual slings and arrows and stay focused on message. Trump makes everything about himself, and when you just, screwed up big time like he did, over the weekend or did 11 years ago and just caught up with him now, he is incapable of refocusing onto the big picture. He always has to defend himself. That's why he was so terrible in the first debate. He got put on his heels and was forced to defend his business record, and he couldn't just let go of it and pivot onto something different. He's just too petty.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating to me that Trump doesn't recognize this by now, that ironically, as perhaps the least policy-oriented presidential candidate in the race from the beginning, policy is his salvation, his political salvation. It's not cult of personality, which I think he thinks it is. It's actually his policy positions. That's his play. And sometimes he makes it, and other times he doesn't. And as the question was asked during the debate on Sunday, if as Trump once said, discipline is required for proper leadership, he needs to take his own advice the last 4 weeks.
That's exactly right. He is the most undisciplined, figure I think we've seen in politics perhaps ever. And I just, I feel for the people that are trying to wrangle him in. When they are able to focus him like they did through most of September, he did quite well. He was really within striking distance. He was one or two.
Oh. Did we lose Mark?
Sorry.
You're back.
He was one or two bad news cycles away from, from one or two bad news cycles for Hillary Clinton away from, possibly pulling into the lead. But, he just could never quite get over the hump, and a lot of it has to do with his own personal flaws.
Mark Hemingway, senior writer for the Weekly Standard, weeklystandard.com. Mark, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.